Welcome to the Wellbeing Week. You can set your microphones to mute when Jen and Nick are talking and doing the presentation. We'd love to see your faces, so it'd be cool if you keep your webcams on, but we are recording these for YouTube and social media for later, so if you prefer to turn your camera off, we do completely understand, but like I say, I do like to see the faces.
You just said that I put some makeup on. For goodness sake, look at the state of me.
Oh, don't be silly, Leslie.
Look at that.
You'll look lovely as always.
Oh, I have the worst haircut of my life, and now you've just said you might be on YouTube with it. Thanks, mate. Thanks. I might just turn the camera off, to be honest.
No, we want to see your face. And of course, you can add any questions into the chat box as we're going through, but I will open up at the end and we can have a chat. So yeah, just what I'm going to do now is feedback is always welcome. So if you want to either leave it in the chat box after the session or send it to myself at support@makesecondscount.co.uk, that would be fantastic. And Power Health, our sponsors, have very kindly given us a 20% discount on their products. So you can use the code MakeSecondsCount. And you can visit them at powerhealth.co.uk and have a look at everything that they do. But that is pretty much me done my bit. So I am now going to hand over to the lovely Jennifer and Nicola. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, ladies. So yeah, I know we're obviously, today's session is kind of about, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your guys' experiences just of oh, sorry, that's my cat's destroying the background here, so sorry, that's what happens, isn't it? So yeah, we want to talk a little bit about your experiences as stage 4 cancer patients, but also parents of young families, and talking a little bit about how you guys met and where really the idea for the flashcard packs came from, and sort of what encouraged you to continue and to grow it. So that's the kind of things I'd like to cover. So hopefully my cats won't cause any more distress, and I'm going to hand over to you two lovelies, and if you want to, yeah, just over to you.
Oh gosh, so we've got this really lovely PowerPoint. I'm such a teacher. So I'm Jen, I'm one of the co-founders of Little C Club, and I'm a secondary school teacher in Hertfordshire, and this is Nick is here on my screen. I don't know where she is on yours.
I'm here.
You're an NHS nurse, aren't you?
I am, yes.
So
for my sins. Yeah.
I'm gonna very quickly, share my screen, and this should hopefully help explain who we are, and then we're gonna have loads of time to be able to hopefully answer some of your questions. The pictures look really old now. My hair's grown significantly, but so this is us. So Nicola and I both have secondary breast cancer. We both have 2 children. So I've got Eliza and Albie, and Nick has got Dylan and Poppy. Nick, your primary diagnosis was in 2011?
Yeah, and then I had quite a big gap until my secondary diagnosis in 2018.
And so my primary diagnosis was May 2019, and then my secondary diagnosis was November 2019, once I'd been through all of the treatment they suggested. So Nick and I met in March, or February actually, just before the first lockdown in Bristol, at a Breast Cancer Now young women's secondary breast cancer. I keep calling it a retreat. It's not a retreat. It was a gathering of women in a very similar situation. And yeah, my hair was ridiculously short then. I'm not even know why you befriended me.
I think we've got some pictures actually. Have we got some pictures of Bristol on the next slide?
Can you not see that screen? Has it moved on?
Oh, mine hasn't. Maybe it's just mine that's slow.
Can anyone else see how we met on the screen? No. Oh gosh, that's not good. Okay, hang on, let me try again. Let's go again. Sorry, guys. There we go. Can you see this now?
I can just see your desktop at the moment.
Oh no. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. We'll just talk.
Yeah.
So we met in Bristol. We got together at this Breast Cancer Now event, and throughout the sessions you could sign up for a variety of different talks, so from oncologists and information about trials, which was fascinating, especially as kind of secondary breast cancer was quite new to me and relatively new to Nick. And one of the sessions that we went to was about talking to children about having a secondary diagnosis, which both of us were obviously very mindful of with our children, and how we was going to communicate what was happening with mummy, and kind of best approaches for that. So we went to a session, didn't we? There was probably maybe 15 of us, because they put it into age groups. So there was older teens, and then there was the younger children, and we kind of fell in that bracket. And a child psychologist came and gave us some really interesting ideas and some activities that we could do, which I think we've both kind of held on to and we quite liked. But she ended the session with a really emotive book, which was probably not best placed for the situation, and left all of us in floods of tears, actually probably more confused about how to talk to children than we were when we first started, and which was really, it was quite traumatic actually. And I think at that point, Nick, I'd said I wanted to go home, didn't I?
Yeah, it wasn't the best session. I think it was actually quite near the end, so probably quite lucky, wasn't it? I think we probably were about to go home, but yeah, it left us all feeling pretty down, and not very hopeful, which is exactly the opposite of the message that we actually wanted to give to our children.
I would imagine that must have been quite a scary situation to have been put in, because obviously were you expecting one thing from it and you were left with a completely different experience of what that session was going to be?
I think the sessions have been so good, they've been so informative about the kind of clinical side of things, that the expectation from us is that we was going to go to this session and it was going to answer all our questions about how to talk to children. And I mean, there we are now preaching about how to talk to children. But we should be really clear right from the start that this is something that Nick and I have kind of developed because it's something that we feel it works for our children. And ultimately that was our intention, was to create something that we could use that was beneficial to both of our families, and off of the back of that it's grown into something much bigger, which we were not expecting. So after we left Bristol, we stayed in contact, and Nick and I actually live about 40 minutes away from each other, which is bizarre, bearing in mind everybody was coming from all over the UK to this event, a bit like Make Seconds Count being obviously in Scotland, and us having a really good relationship with you guys. And we carried on talking over Zoom like everybody in the UK did with lockdown and the pandemic, and it kind of became like this at-home project that Nick was in the process of writing a book that she's now published. Just putting that in there, then Nick just published a book. And I sort of suggested, I had this idea of using flashcards, because at school my children are really familiar with using flashcards, the phonics and things like that, and as a teacher I see the benefit in them, in that kind of visual representation as to how you explain something. So we started working on the flashcards, and basically the Little C Club kind of got created in the pandemic, which was it was a godsend, I think, to both of us, because I think it gave us a focus and something positive to work on, and a reason to be constantly on Zoom together, sharing our kind of experiences of what was happening with us and the kids in the pandemic, and suddenly becoming stay-at-home teachers, and me teaching my children in my secondary school at the same time. So the club got created, and the cards are basically an A to Z of cancer, not specific to breast cancer, which is what we both have. Kindly modelled by Claire.
I'm going to try and show you a couple of these, but you guys carry on. I'm going to pick out a few.
That's right. So the cards are an A to Z. They're not all specific to cancer. There are different topics that we kind of cover, but the format of the card stays the same. So the cards have a letter on the front. So for younger children, they can identify. So Poppy uses them, doesn't she, Nick, for phonics and for sounds and letters.
Yeah.
And then our older children use the reverse because it's got more information. So Eliza's 9, so she's more than capable of reading all of it. And Albie and Dylan actually now are starting to read those cards and have a better understanding of their mummy's situation. So yeah, so like Claire's got the secondary card, which was really important to us, that we weren't just focusing on primary cancer. We needed to include secondary because that was us.
I think it was also sorry, Jen. I think it was also one of the things that stood out from a lot of the resources that were already available, was that they were very much based at a mummy that had cancer, had treatment and got better, and then everything was wonderful again. There was nothing really that we could find that addressed that isn't always the case, and actually this treatment will be ongoing.
Yeah.
So that the secondary card was really important to get
and actually really important, I guess, for you two as parents who actually have a secondary breast cancer. So it's about finding your way forward and what works for you as families, because obviously your families are growing as you have to combat all these, everything that comes with secondaries, which we all know can be a lot. So the cards are obviously helping with that.
I think for both of us, the purpose of the cards was to be able to have those kind of open conversations. Neither of us have hidden or not discussed our situations to a point. And I'll be really clear, like we haven't had any kind of final kind of conversations with the children, because we're both at the minute in a positive place, and those conversations will come later. But we were very conscious we didn't want to not include them and them start to formulate their own opinions and thoughts of what was happening. Obviously my children were present when I had my primary cancer, and I lost all my hair, so I'm now like 2 years on from when my hair came out. Just modelling my hair, and and so they saw all of that, and you can't hide that, you can't not explain it. But it was explaining it in a way that was safe and that was giving them as much information as we thought they were able to cope with. Would you agree,
so
Nick?
Can I ask you a question then, Jennifer? Would you have preferred to have had something like the cards then during your primary to help?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We've been doing a lot of work around this at the minute with the East Cancer Alliance that we're working with the NHS. And when I had my primary diagnosis, I don't know about others, I was given this ring binder, like the ring binder of doom, when I first was diagnosed, and was kind of given this book and sort of taking it away. And I think it's in the bin, if I'm honest. But none of that was something that I wanted to look at. But both of us, and I'm sure for all of the other women who are in this, the primary concern that you have when somebody tells you you've got cancer is, well, how do I explain to my children? And my other question is, will my hair fall out because I'm vain? And I was worried about that. But the primary concern was, how do you explain that to your children? And in that moment, I don't think I wanted somebody to force something in my face. But afterwards, when I then had processed and my husband had processed, we were like, right, we want to talk to the children about it, because we felt that they needed to be included. But I couldn't find what I wanted. I found some quite beige books. I found some website resources which I just don't think my children would have connected with. And I think what we've tried to create is something that is bright and colourful, that takes the scary out of it. I think that's always been Nick's phrase, to ensure that there's the word cancer doesn't have the same taboo as it did 20 years ago, and that there's been so many advancements in medicines, and there are new medicines on the market that are available to us that weren't when I was diagnosed 2 years ago. So there's constant improvement being made, and I think that's both Nick and I's approach. We have to remain positive, because otherwise we'd be a blubbering mess, and we wouldn't be able to function, then we wouldn't be able to parent. So it was trying to find something that was going to help.
I think a lot of it is about just trying to change the narrative on it, really, isn't it, and make sure that perceptions are moving on with the advancements in treatment, because a few years ago, if you was diagnosed, say 10 years ago, if you was diagnosed with a secondary, you would have a much lower life expectancy, because some of these treatments weren't available that are keeping us all stable and, touch wood, okay for the moment. And I'm not trying to say, when we say we're trying to take the scary out of cancer, neither of us are naive enough to think that we can make it not scary. It's absolutely bloody terrifying most of the time, but it's just about trying to normalize it a bit more. It is part of our lives, and our kids are going to have to learn to grow up and understand some elements of it. So it's about putting it across in a way that's not quite so scary.
Yeah, I mean, I know that obviously our founder Lisa, she has used PAC with her son Cameron, and it's on her website actually, is how brilliant she found that as a way of opening up a conversation with young Cameron and making it quite a normal conversation. So there was nothing to, I think it just allowed, I guess, the conversation to flow quite naturally, and having the cards help with that. I mean, I'm looking at some of them just now, and even things like goals and plans, it's not just cancer related, if you like. It's about lots of different things like feelings and, you know, kindness, and obviously it talks about chemotherapy and explains it all in a really good way. But I guess, is that, I mean, I'm not a parent, so is it just about making it as straightforward as possible without, as you say, completely scaring your kids?
Yeah,
or you guys as a family, I guess?
I think the cards themselves, there's absolutely no suggestion that you would sit down with your child and go through the whole A to Z, because that would be pretty terrifying, I think, for their little minds to compute all at once. But I think the positive about the cards is that you can use them as and when a topic comes up. So there may be another point where I have to have chemotherapy again. I'm on capecitabine at the minute, so there's not as many impacts in terms of my reactions to it. But there will be a time that I have to explain to Albie, not so much Eliza, that Albie, Mummy's got to have chemotherapy again, and because he was too young to probably really remember it, whereas Eliza was fully invested in helping with my wig and doing all of that kind of stuff, and so it will be good for him to be able to use that card, and then maybe a different one. Like, he knew about my radiotherapy, and he knows that he thinks that superhero zapped my boob, and he takes it quite literally. But the whole thing with Dylan and Albie, they were kind of inspiration, because a lot of it is about lightning bolts and superhero powers, and Eliza was very involved in doodling like some of the ideas, and we've kind of then refined them. But she was really involved in picking out what words matched up with which letters that she felt was appropriate. So it was kind of done with our own focus group, I suppose.
Well, that must be what makes it incredibly successful, though, because it is coming from also the kids' perspective right from the very beginning. I mean, if they're helping with the drawings, you can tell they're instantly going to relate to them, aren't they? And it's going to, I mean, I'm just looking at the card, for example, it's you for upset, and just reading the back of it, and like, I can just imagine sitting, being able trying to explain situation, because your kids are going to want to know why you're sad or upset, and obviously let them know it's not about them, and all, you know, there's so many things that must come with it. So I can see why the cards would be incredibly successful. But I love the fact that the kids were involved in, you know, quite a lot of it, and obviously having their input has obviously helped with the product itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, even now Eliza is we're developing some new bits and pieces, and even now Eliza is giving us her opinion of how it should look and what we should be doing, so she's been a great help.
She's a bit of a diva.
Yeah. Does that help you guys though, having them be as involved in this project? Does that give you guys a bit of hope and comfort, as you know, obviously you've still got the cancer stuff going on in your life, so does this help?
Yeah, I think absolutely it's helped, and especially it's given us even more of a reason to be open with our children, I think, and now Dylan will openly ask me a question, whereas before I'd be worried about like, is he like worrying about this and feeling like he can't talk to anybody, but now I know that he knows he can come to me, which has been a great help to me, because my biggest thing was, how can I make this okay for them? Like, they are gonna grow up with this all of their lives. Like Poppy was only 4 months when I was diagnosed with my secondaries, and it was all about just trying to make it a better situation for them. So it's been a great help to me.
Mm-hmm. So how would you suggest then that families use the cards? Like you said, you don't want to go through the entire alphabet, but would you have like a routine that you would suggest that you work, or is it just if there's an issue that's come up relating to your situation that you bring the cards out and use it that way?
I think it depends on ages. I think for Poppy, she's used them more like a game. So she recognises the letters, the colours, the pictures, which has been quite a soft introduction to things. Albie and Dylan are obviously able to read the words on the fronts of the cards and the backs. They're 5. Eliza is obviously very competent at reading, and she's got a really good understanding, but I think they found comfort in the fact that we'd designed them and that they'd been involved. But I think it's down to each individual. There's no right or wrong way of talking to your children about this. It's what suits your family dynamic. And Eliza tends to ask a lot of questions just before bedtime, which is probably her excuse for not going to bed. But that's been quite nice for me and her to sit and have conversations about it, and we kind of pull out certain cards, and like the feelings card's been really important to us, like being able to discuss if she's upset about something, and it might have absolutely nothing to do with me being poorly. It could just be something to do with something that's happened at school, but they've definitely helped to create conversations that probably wouldn't have happened before. And like both of our husbands, I think from talking to them and kind of getting a gist of how, because when I had my primary diagnosis, I wasn't in a fit state to talk to our children. I didn't think I could hold it together enough to tell them something that was going to ultimately change our lives, and not have them be upset, seeing me upset. So my husband did it. I don't even know what he said, if I'm honest, because I wasn't there. I'd kind of sat separate, and then we all came together afterwards. And obviously the cards weren't around then, but both Rich and Matt have said that if they had had those cards, that they would have used certain things to have been able to start that conversation. And it's almost like a prompt, isn't it? And like Richard had absolutely no idea about cancer. None of us, like my mum had breast cancer twice, but I was a lot older. I wasn't a child. I was able to Google things for myself and look stuff up. And my husband has had nobody in his life who's had cancer, so he didn't know any of the terms just as much as I didn't know. I couldn't have told you what a PICC line was. I didn't really know what chemotherapy was. I had a warped perception by things I'd seen in films, but I hadn't had any real experience of it. So to suddenly be launched into that environment of cancer is quite a traumatic experience for people to have to be able to navigate with maybe not as much guidance as there could be, which in a sense is why we created the Little C Club, to at least try and help. Especially things like schools. So my children's school have the packs. There are a number of children at my children's school, unfortunately, whose parents have cancer. And so when they do circle time and small group interventions, they've used them. And I just think, to me, that just fills me with all good stuff, because if we can help somebody else's child understand at a level that they are able to go home and have a conversation at home, that we must be doing something right.
Well, that was I guess one of the things I was going to ask. So Nick, there must have been an element of definitely having that be something that's missing from, the cancer support side, if you like, because there's obviously support in so many other ways, particularly in the primary world. Secondary, it gets a bit trickier because obviously there's other issues that come with that. But I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this that caters to the actual family as a whole. It's all about either the parent who's unwell or the partner who's supporting, but not as a whole. So do you think, obviously, there was a need for this in the cancer world?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really lucky that I've got a very good specialist nurse. But even with having that, the fact of my children was very much, it wasn't really talked about. Everything was focused. There's so much other stuff going on, treatment plans and whatnot. I don't think anyone actually asked me even like, are you okay with your children? Have you thought about how you're going to talk to them? And I know like the hospices and Maggie's and places like that offer lots of support, but unless you actively go out and find it, sometimes you can't always see that straight away. So I think for us, our main aim is that, not that they get shoved in your face at the minute you're diagnosed, but just so that nurses within the hospitals and doctors within the hospitals are aware of them and can source them, so that there is somebody asking you, do you need some help with your children? We've got some resources available. Because I think it really is, there's a real missing link there, because there are so many people that are younger with it as well, and you still get that every time I tell somebody about my diagnosis. They're like, oh, you're so young, it doesn't happen to young people. Yes, it does. And I think that's another reason why perceptions need to move with the times a bit.
And I think, as you guys say, because a lot of it now, because they are getting younger, it's a lot of younger families that are sadly now involved, isn't it? And the kids are so young. Like, obviously I've had experience previously, but I was 15 when my mum was diagnosed, so I was obviously a lot older. But I know that obviously I can imagine what a strain it must be if you're just trying to bring up your kids at the end of the day, aren't you? And you're trying to enjoy that whole experience, and then to have something like cancer. But I was also thinking the cards must be really good to use in like the home environment, because there's something about a safe space at home, I would imagine, and being able, rather than having to take the kids to somewhere like, as much as you can go to a Maggie's or a Macmillan or something, I would imagine just being able to sort of help them through whatever they're going, but in the safety of their house with these cards must also be a really positive thing.
I think, again, it's just making it a normal conversation, isn't it? Something you can just talk about in everyday life, and not that the minute children think you've got a secret, it becomes something scary, whether it is or it isn't, whether you're planning to get them a birthday cake. Just the fact that they know that you've got a secret that you're holding from them, it becomes something much bigger than it is. So it is just about trying to have those normal conversations in day-to-day life, and we've purposely kept them very simple so that they can, because everyone's story is individual and unique, so the cards are just basically a starting point, so people can add in their own personal information as they go with what they feel comfortable with.
And so do you think that your jobs as a teacher and a nurse have helped in the development of the cards? Do you think that's been something that's been really useful?
I think it was a good mix, wasn't it, Nick? Because I think we both had different experiences from our professional backgrounds. So I'm a design teacher, so the kind of the graphic side of things is what I did, and then Nick did all of the writing because of her nursing background. And I think that's kind of what's stood us in a really good position now that we've got we've partnered with the East of England Cancer Alliance as a pilot to then hopefully go across the UK, where they're then going to be able to supply these to NHS hospitals to be handed out, which is brilliant. But I think they liked the combination of our two professions in that they were kind of trusted pathways, I suppose. We both brought different things. But the cards as well, at the bottom of each card, there's either talk cards, so trying to promote some kind of conversation, or there's activities. And the activities are not anything kind of specific to cancer. So like the tests and biopsies one, I think, is all about making slime. So there's like a slime recipe, and then there's another one on the wigs where it's like about dyeing hair using different coloured tissue papers and stuff. So they're like fun activities that parents can do together that might start as making slime, but then work into a conversation about, oh, these experiments happen and medicines get created. I did some chalk drawings out the front with my kids. They're obsessed with drawing on the pavement, and my house just looks like the rough house in the street. But it's I was drawing, they were drawing, and I was drawing out from for our Instagram how cells divide and how they then change and morph and things, and that then hooked them. So then Albie's drawing his own monsters on the pavement and stuff. So it's about sort of blending normal activities that you can navigate into a conversation about cancer if you need to. Yeah, we don't only talk about cancer in our houses.
No, I imagine, but I just imagine how helpful it must be, like, as I say, because those conversations must be incredibly tough. But you kind of touched on the NHS England thing, which was one of the things I wanted to ask about, because obviously it's a hugely exciting thing. Can you tell us how the NHS England thing came about, and what you're hoping will happen with that?
I can't tell you too much about what we're hoping.
No, it's a secret.
Yeah, they've been such a great support to us, and actually it came about from somebody that works for the Big C in Norfolk.
Okay.
Laura, I forget her surname now, but she found us on Instagram and got a pack, and she goes to all these Cancer Alliance boards and things like this, and she'd taken them there and said, look at these, and it just went from there. They got in touch with us, and we've been working with them for quite a while now on steps again.
Fantastic.
Unfortunately, I can't reveal those yet.
That's okay. I look forward to the exclusive at a later date, though, don't worry. So do you think then, and I think we probably touched on this the last time we had an Instagram live, way back in the early days of the flashcards, do you guys think there's scope for more in the range and being able to take it into other topics about not even necessarily cancer, but maybe other things that are happening in your life? Can you see the cards expanding that way?
So we've kind of talked about the potential to have some cards linked to mental health and feelings and emotions, because I think that's just become a huge thing with the pandemic. Even beforehand, we have similar things for teenagers in secondary school, but I think there's definitely kind of routes that you could take off of this that would be in a similar style and format, but covering different illnesses, different chronic illnesses. I think because we obviously had the experience of breast cancer and cancer generally, it was an easy fix for us. So I think it would be really interesting to work with other people who've got different conditions and see whether or not you could develop something alongside them as well. So yeah, definitely.
I think, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of cards in the pack that are cancer specific, but there's also a lot that are focused on just well-being and change, really. Any big change in a child's life could relate to a lot of those cards. So yeah, I definitely think there's a lot planned for the future.
It's all very exciting, ladies, very exciting indeed. So you both we've mentioned this before, that you both got young families and you both have stage 4, and I know there's probably everyone on this call, maybe with the exception of a couple of us, that are in a similar situation to you in that way. So how do you guys juggle everything in terms of working, in terms of your cancer, in terms of these cards, just life in general? How do you guys do it? Any tips and tricks for us?
Successfully. No, I don't know. I work 4 days a week, so Thursday's my day off. I think Thursday being my day off is like my little C club day, although we do it other days, but like we try and get things done on a Thursday. We have meetings on Thursdays, and yeah, my life hasn't stopped because of all of this, because you just can't as parents, can you? They've got clubs, they've got after school events, they've got Google Classroom homework, which does my head in, and I'm just like, oh, and we got a puppy in the second lockdown because we lost Jasper previously, so we were like, yeah, what else do we need to add to our lives? So, yeah, well, I had a puppy, and he's a Springer Spaniel, so he's equally mental. So that was a really good choice in my house. So I just add stuff.
What about you, Nick?
It's just, I'm always juggling. I'm never really that far from dropping the balls either, if I'm honest. It's a crazy life, but I do think we're both quite good at trying to make time for a bit of self-care and a nice soak in the bath with a face mask, those kind of moments, just to chill out a bit, because it is a lot, and it has been, especially over the last few weeks, been very hectic. So yeah, I've got no tips or tricks.
Just go on with it. So what does well-being mean to both of you then, in terms of maybe not even cancer related, but what's well-being to both of you?
I think since my diagnosis, I've definitely spent more time thinking about myself and making time for myself. My husband's really good. He can kind of see when I'm on the edge and be like, do you need to walk the dog? Do you need to go out? I'm like, probably. But both of us, I'm sure Nick won't mind me saying, both of us have had counselling because of our diagnosis. Nick, currently, I had some previously, and I will probably pick it up again soon. But I just think it was just really healthy to have somebody who had absolutely nothing to do with me, that I could just vent at and say things I could never say to people that were close to us, because it would just upset them, and it's not appropriate to say that to them. But yeah, counselling, a good face mask, a good space mask. Oh my god, I love those. The heat face masks. Yeah, Harry, don't watch her stories. You should. She's like a rabbit hole. I just fall down that.
Yeah, I fall down that one quite often myself, to be fair.
3rd of August.
She's brilliant.
Quite cheap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little mini break.
So
Cheap, isn't it? Yeah.
It's cheap for August. That's like summer holiday time.
Hold on a wee second for me.
That'll be nice.
Just trying to see where that's coming from. Sorry, 2 seconds. It's not letting me. It's not letting me mute. Okay.
Helen's off mute.
I'm just gonna.
Helen's off mute.
Helen, have you got your microphone off, lovely?
I think she's very...
For some reason it won't let me mute. I don't know why it's not working for me. Anyway, right, I'm just going to, so Fiona's asked a really good question there actually, which is, do you think this is something you would have both pursued if you hadn't met each other?
I don't know if it's something we'd have got as far. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I don't think I definitely wouldn't have got this far down the road with it if we hadn't have been in it together, because it started out as such a small fun project in lockdown, and it's turned into something much bigger, and I think we've leaned on each other quite a lot, and we both have moments like a few weeks ago I was like, oh, just can't take anymore, and then Jen was like picking it up, and like it goes back and forwards. I think we support each other a lot through it, and I definitely would have been able to do it without Jen.
No. I don't think we would have had the time or the headspace to have done it, and I think we were so lucky when we went on the breast cancer now residential thing to find somebody that just really got. Everybody was obviously in the same situation, but we are very similar in our mindset and our ways and our kids and things like that. And our kids love each other, like they just click really well. And I think we were just really fortunate to find each other and carry on like talking. Like we probably talk like every other day, which is mental, but and not just about little C stuff. Like my last scan results weren't great, and Nicola was my person I rung, because I just knew that I could cry on the phone to her, and she would say exactly what I needed her to say. Anybody else would have just gone, oh, it'll be fine, like no, she was just like, no, it's shit, it's absolute shit.
So you've developed a genuine really close friendship through having met originally, and then this project has obviously helped that, but actually you're very close together even without the project.
Yeah
Absolutely. And I was thinking that actually, Jen, when you were saying about the counselling, started some counselling now, just to sort of, I call it a mind dump. It's quite nice just to clear your mind and just offload it onto a complete stranger and let them deal with it for a little while. But actually having Jen is a little bit like that too. Not that I dump all of my worries on her, but just that I know I could say anything to her and she just gets it, and equally she could say anything to me. It's that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, Fiona's just put there at the end, meant to be with a wee heart. So that's lovely, isn't it? That's the comment to take away. But I mean, Julia, I don't think you'll mind me saying, but you'd mentioned that you had got the packs from your local Maggie's centre. So look, Juliet's displaying them too. So would you mind telling us a little bit about?
It all comes in a little tight sleeve. It's nice.
Yeah. So
yeah. So literally, I was just yesterday. I was at so I'm at Addenbrook's Hospital. So I've been going to the Maggie's there for quite well since I got diagnosed last September. I got diagnosed sort of de novo, like within the space of about a month, and after my CT scan where they picked up the Met thing on my hip, I was just like, I went out of the appointment, I was like, where do I go now? I can't just go home, it's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I just walked into Maggie's anyway, and they were really good, and been having some counselling with them as well. But yeah, I'm doing like a course which is called Where Now with Cancer, and I went in. It's been done online, but we did like art therapy basically yesterday, and we went into the centre, and the centre leader was Lisa, isn't it? Yeah, she basically said, "Oh, we've got this thing on. If you don't know if you want to come to it, like it's like you're doing like a thing next weekend, a launch thing." So they were like, and then if you take these cards, and then you can do some sort of feedback as well. And so I haven't shown it to the kids yet. We'll see if it's yesterday.
We'll get to meet you in a couple of weeks then.
Yeah.
So exciting. I've never been to the Maggie's at Addenbrook's, but I live in Bishop Stortford, so it's like almost my second closest hospital. But we know Lisa, who runs the centre, and I was so excited to go and see it. It looks amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted to mention that obviously because I think it's so great to see that the packs are now becoming available in sort of different areas where people are likely to come, and obviously what we've done now is we've funded some packs.
Yeah.
So we now obviously have them on our website that you just click the button, register your name, and we'll send you the pack out. So we are really pleased that we've also been able to do that, because we just want to give them out to as many, patients that could use them. But Juliet, I know you maybe haven't had a chance to use them yet, but after listening to the chat today, do you think that's something that you will definitely utilise? As I know, because you've got young kids yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because basically I just got them yesterday, so I thought I'd have a look through and like myself first, and then go and sort of pick ones out. So I have told the kids about my diagnosis, but I haven't gone into like huge amounts of detail. And my treatment's been, because it was de novo, generally sort of tablet based, mostly, not hormone therapy, so it hasn't been like sort of too intrusive so far. I am hopefully going to be having some like surgery on my, basically I'm hoping to have local treatments on, because I've got like the breast and the hip on both sort of things. So again, that will help like explain those treatments as well, actually. Yeah, my situation's a little bit more complicated in the sense that I'm not with their dad, and that can get a little bit tricky at times because he's not a nice character.
I can imagine.
I basically just told the kids, that I'm having these treatments. I haven't sort of said, what's going to happen in the long term. So I've been told, I should be fine for like a long time anyway. Yeah. But like I've sort of said, hope, this might make it go. I didn't say it sort of definitely would, but my son asked me the other day, he said he got confused because he said, oh, does your cancer not go away, mummy? Because like daddy said it won't and stuff. And like, oh, the longest you might live is 20 years and stuff like that. It's like, thanks for that. I've been trying to like, and stuff like that. And he's like come in and basically Anyway, sorry, I probably shouldn't go on. It's a bit
Maybe,
like,
maybe he needs the cards.
Yeah.
yes.
You
need
need
something.
The
everything.
children don't. Maybe the husband does. The ex-husband. Like, it's madness. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
so
I think that's so true. It is, and who bloody knows how long we're going to be here for? I'm here for 50 odd years. Like, I'm not going anywhere. But it's all the mindset, isn't it? You don't need people saying negative things.
Yeah.
exactly. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I just wondered if anyone who has been on the call today has any questions that they'd specifically like to ask Jen or Nick.
Ooh, yeah.
Please fire away.